I got Lucas McGill here. Tommy Lepore here from Blue Springs South. Brett Norfleet. Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Productions studios for this edition of YBMcast, Prep Baseball Talk, powered by Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. Also, just remember, get subscribed, and you're entered to win this bucket of high school baseballs and the bucket itself from Prime Sports Midwest, our great partners over there, doing a great job in the sporting goods with baseball equipment. We got the old Fungo, 36-inch Fungo bat, and I'm not going to lift it up, but it's over here. We have the Marucci hitting net, portable hitting net. If you subscribe while you're watching, if you haven't subscribed and you're watching, please do so. It enters you in to win this, and we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button. Throw some love to the folks at Prime Sports Midwest in the comments. We'd love to hear that, and that will get you entered to win. Also, got some great gear coming up. We're this close to getting some YBM gear, so that's going to be coming out pretty quickly here, so I'm looking forward to that. But today, as always, I am going to say this because I feel bad, because I got Kevin here he's down with the family on vacation, and look at this dedication this guy has, man. I love that stuff. I appreciate you coming on the show, buddy.
Love talking baseball, and hey, we've got the season kicked off, and now we got good stuff to talk about. We're not just hypothesis and just what might be and what if, and now we're actually getting to talk about results. So that's we always like it when kids settle it on the field. So that's great.
Absolutely, and the early season tournaments are in full swing. Francis Howell has been everything we talked about. CBC has been the same. My goodness, who else, Kevin?
Well, yeah. There's been a number of teams that have jumped out of the gates good, and it's interesting to see teams start out. Some come out gangbusters, and Francis Howell, Liberty North, CBC, they've looked every bit as advertised, and maybe even a little more if possible. And then other teams, take a little time to find themselves and, figure out who fits what role, and, you have a bad first game or something like that. So it can take a couple weeks sometimes to get going. We saw that last year out of Lindbergh High School. They kind of struggled and then found themselves towards the end of the year and ended up making a great run to the Final Four. So it kind of goes both ways, but certainly the big three between Liberty North, Francis Howell, CBC, and Blue Springs South have jumped out to a really strong start.
The other one off the top of my head, because we kind of under the radar, but Zumwalt West, 3-0.
Yeah, also 3-0. Zumwalt East jumped out to a 2-0 start. Vianney, young group of guys, they're 3-0. There's DeSmet is undefeated now. They're 2-0-1. Webster Groves is off to a 3-0 start over in the Lindbergh Melville tournament. So some interesting scoreboard watching to start off.
I agree. And when we talk about matchups, and we've been talking about these things, and when you go into district play, we're talking about conferences, the GAC, the Suburban St. Louis. I think it's the Ozark Conference down in the Southwest, and then here the St. Louis Suburban. I was over at East on Friday watching the opening day game between St. Dominic and Fort Zumwalt East, which two powerhouses in Class 5. And I think that's going to be a fight all the way. Those teams could match up depending upon where they're at in the district final. I think that's a real possibility there. And boy, it was as advertised. We talked about their starter there, Keel Cohen, right, is how you pronounce that, Kevin?
Keel Cohen, yep.
And Lucas McGill. I mean, those two dudes early on, cold day, they were dealing. They had their stuff. They were working. And it was just a really fun ball game. Zumwalt East got to the bullpen, got 3 runs late in the 7th and won that. The freshman Brendan Pyle is as advertised. The defense, I think they got some pieces and some guys. We talked about Ryan Clethermus. I think he's getting himself started. Made a heck of a catch, Kevin, in right field. The wind at East always blows from the east or the west to the east. I mean, it comes in from left field to right field, man, and it was blowing pretty good. And a ball hit I did not think he was going to get to. Made a great running over the shoulder catch into foul territory before hitting the fence. And so I saw and that was a point that you made when we were talking about the GAC Central, the step above in defense, and I think that's where I saw that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a separator from good teams and great teams, or poor teams and average teams. The defense is a big piece of it, and sounds like you saw a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, and clutch plays. Kids going out making, and Dominic was just there as well. They came up with some big hits in places, got the lead. Their bullpen made some pitches and whatnot. It's just one of those contests. I love that stuff when you're seeing good teams at the top that you've talked about all preseason coming out and showing why you talked about them. And both those teams did it. And it's early. That's one win. We're going to see them again battling it out, and I think that's fun. You said you were at a game on opening day. What'd you see, Kevin?
Yeah, went over to Lindbergh High School. And first off, brand new field turf over there. So love to see the upgraded facility. Looks phenomenal. They've done a great job with that facility. So absolutely love to see schools making a commitment to their baseball facilities, and Lindbergh's turned out fabulous. We saw Vianney versus Lindbergh, so we got Dane Bourne right off the bat. Cold, windy day. Dane looked, mid-season for him, threw the ball extremely well. Tough day to pitch. Can't feel your fingers and extremely windy, but he threw really well. Lindbergh's replacing a lot though. They got the big number one on the mound with Bourne, but they're missing some pieces from last year, so they're going to be trying to find themselves a little bit. Vianney is that young group of talent that we've talked about. They have a bunch of sophomores up on varsity that created a pretty good impact. Nolan Jaworski got a big double in that game, which was the big blow for Vianney. Yeah. Senior right-hander Danny Lindsay, who's going to Lyon College in Tennessee, was on the mound and threw 5 no-hit innings for him, and just can flat pitch. It's a fun guy to watch pitch. He's not, blowing fastballs out by everyone, but really commands the breaking ball, the changeup, moves the fastball around, and he had the Lindbergh hitters off balance, and Vianney came away with a 5-0 win. And they're off to a good start, 3-0 for the young guys, and it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on that Vianney ball club as the season progresses.
Absolutely. Parkway Central has got off to a good start, along with St. Charles West. St. Charles West we've talked about. I know I'm pulling up some GAC teams, but Parkway Central in that as well. Lutheran South, they're down in Florida playing, which, go figure, right?
Yeah.
They got a win against a team. Defiance, Ohio is 6-3 down. I think those are interesting things to see. And I'm looking at the scores from the Monday, I believe it was the 20th, right? Yeah. Or was that Saturday? That was Saturday, wasn't it? The 20th? No, it was Monday. Jeez, I'm lost. All the days are running together. There we go. It was Monday. That's when I got a chance to go out to Howell Central and see CBC. They looked every bit offensively up and down their lineup. I think everybody's a little bit. It'll be interesting to see because I watched. They played Battle, which not the team that you're going, but they did not pitch to Nas Zanatello. They did not pitch to him, which I don't know if I would either. But there's plenty of guys in there to wreak havoc, though.
CBC has a good situation because you can pitch around Nas, but then if I'm not mistaken, they were batting Nas second, and then Caden Pierre right behind him. And Caden Pierre is borderline a superstar himself. Heading to Mizzou, and they got Jake McGee hitting in front of Nas, so they got him sandwiched. And their lineup doesn't stop after those three. It's a really deep lineup. So you're almost forced to pitch to Zanatello. And if you choose not to, then you're going to just be putting more guys on base for other good hitters. And they've had no problem scoring runs so far. I think they've scored 15, 14 in one game. They struggled a little bit and got 13 runs. So they've been swinging the bats right out of the gates.
One that I want to kind of bring to bear, I always like to give these guys some love. They go out and compete. The St. Louis Patriots are off to a good start. The homeschool squad there, right?
No surprise. They're in our small school rankings. A couple years ago, they won the homeschool World Series. That's a good ball club, a number of good players, and they'll go out and play a good schedule. I try to catch those guys once during the spring, and they'll get around. They'll play some good teams. So not surprising to see them jump out of the gates well.
Yeah, they beat St. Charles over at Carshield Field 8-6. So, that was on Monday as well. Just looking down through some scores, Windsor did beat St. Charles West on Monday 8-4. Looking down through here, Troy Buchanan got a win. I like that in their tournament. Hannibal came down. They got a win against Hannibal. And then, we can sit and go through scores like that all day, but I'm not going to do that part of it. But if you get a chance, you can go to the STL High School Sports. They have their scoreboard up. You can also go to misha.org. They have the scoreboard there, and you can check and see scores following your teams throughout the season. And I suggest you do that. I think it's a great way to keep up with the schools. And you got some good matchups today in Jefferson City. St. Francis Borgia is playing Blair Oaks. That should be a good one today. The Troy tournament is finishing out today. I think I just so you know, folks, it is Wednesday. I know this comes out Thursday afternoon, but we record this because of time and things of that nature, constraints. So we're looking at the Wednesday, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that Troy tournament finishes up. Jackson is playing very well. You've got Fort Zumwalt West. I'm so interested in that game, Fort Zumwalt West and CBC.
We got some heavyweights going at it opening week. We got CBC, Francis Howell, Jackson, and Fort Zumwalt West, and they're gonna sort it out over the next day or two. So it's going to be fun to see how that shakes out. And the great thing is we've talked about this. We love seeing teams challenge themselves. Someone's going to lose, obviously, and that's fine. It's not any indication of what's ahead for their season. You're battle testing yourself. You're finding out about your players. It's only going to prepare you more as you enter in deeper into the season and ultimately the postseason. So fun to see these good teams get together and compete versus each other.
Absolutely. They can set up fantastic fanwear stores, and 80% of the uniforms, fanwear, are decorated in the store. And that is in Fenton, Missouri. It's all local. 1550 Ocello Drive. It's over in Champions Village. So they control the quality, the design, the creativity, the deadlines. Most importantly, locally owned and focused on customer service. Rick Benz does a great job down there. So please, Prime Sports, MW.com. check it out. Get your uniforms. Get yourself set up. And tell them YBM sent you. We appreciate that. PBR, Kevin's got these out. These came out, what, Kevin, last Friday?
We put them out last Thursday, the day before the season started, and I will be the first to say this is the one poll that we put out that is, an opinion. They're all opinions, I suppose, but this is the one where it's more of what we've seen out of teams in the winter, a little bit off of what they did last year and who they got coming back, and then moving forward, it shifts to more the players kind of decide. The teams decide themselves. We go off of what we see and what we've seen. This is, if this is a highly educated guess, and this is how we started. And you can see our top 10 right here. And so far, a lot of these teams are off to great starts. Liberty North, our defending 6A champion, is off to a strong start. They're 4-0 right out of the gates. Big wins over Park Hill, Lee Summit. They took down Fayetteville out of Arkansas, which is a really strong Arkansas team. So that's they went out of state, or Fayetteville actually came up to Missouri. But that's an out-of-state win and a really good one. If this was college baseball, this would be a big RPI win for Liberty North, beating Fayetteville. And then they took down Rockhurst as well. So strong start for them. Francis Howell has been rolling as well, 3-0, and then we'll find out a little more about them today as they finish up the Troy tournament. And then Blue Springs South has jumped out of the gates as well with a big win over our fourth-ranked team, Liberty. So holding there. They beat Platt. So Blue Springs South, another strong start as well for the top of our rankings here.
And we talked about CBC, Jackson, Rockbridge, Nixa, and Willard in that 8-9 spot. We were talking before we started the show that Willard.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Willard. It was Springfield Catholic. We'll get to that in a minute. But Willard's off to a really strong start. Nixa had a little hiccup there, but I don't know how you can say that too much, and we'll explain that here in a minute. But I want to come back to Willard real quick because I think you have Willard and Platte County here as the only Class 5 schools right there. I mean, Platte County is your on deck right there underneath Willard. And so it's interesting, it's tough with the large schools because it's a mix of Class 5 and Class 6, right?
Correct. And obviously Jackson and CBC are off to undefeated starts as well in the Troy tournament and are going to be a part of that semifinal and final equation. Columbia Rockbridge, I think, is off to a 1-1 start, big win over Rolla, and then they lost a tight extra inning game to Republic, who's also one of the stronger teams in out of the Springfield area. You don't overreact to one loss, especially when it's versus a top team as well. So like to see teams getting challenged. And then we got Staley in the 9. Staley's on a trip down to Arizona, so it'll be tough to kind of make what to make of that, see how they do when they get back into town. And then, Willard's our 5A team that we got ranked 10th and also off to a strong start.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, they're a good baseball team. Of YBMcast, powered by Game 7 Baseball, Game7Baseball.com.
Guys are good.
Yeah, we got that one smoothed out, I think.
See, I think the only thing on the show we get correct, but it's good.
Yeah, and we have Game 7 Baseball himself, Dave Pinning, or at least half of it.
Better half. Sorry, Schmidt.
No, you're not.
Oh, we started that one, didn't we? Let's look at. I want to pull GAC out of here real quick because we focus a lot on the GAC. giving them love and all that. Francis Howell is the only GAC team in the top 10. But in your on deck, you have Timberland down there, which I want to bring up Timberland. They're off to a slow start, 0-3. They seem to be struggling to get themselves going. So I think that's an interesting one. Again, like you said, you never know. I'm not saying, but early on. And I think baseball's that way. You can't say, okay, they started 0-3, but they could get on that run just as Lindbergh did. Lindbergh was around.
The thing about Timberland that you got to look at with them is we know it's not a super offensive group. And their pitching is what carries them. Right now we're at a point in the season where, like I know one game they started Yarberry and Hatchman and only threw them 25, 30 pitches right out of the gate, which is an admirable thing by their coach to kind of build up their arms. So it might take a team like that to get going a little bit when they unleash those pitchers, when they're throwing 5, 6, 7 innings in a ball game. And right now they got to find themselves offensively. But they simply do not have the type of offense that can keep up with the Francis Howell if they don't have one of their big arms going head-to-head, if that makes sense.
It does, because that's exactly what we discussed. That's what we talked about. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, 0-3 start. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out once the season continues and we get into some warmer weather. You've got Zumwalt West on deck there as far as GAC is concerned, Francis Howell Central, and Fort Zumwalt East kind of rounds out that group. And I think those are all right in there. You can make some arguments for maybe a couple teams there, but thoughts?
Yeah, and it's like, Francis Howell Central, we kind of throw them in with Timberland. They're, I believe, off to a 1-2 start, but they're playing great competition, and they're going to be stronger for it in the long run. So it's, again, someone's going to win, someone's going to lose when you get a bunch of good teams together and play. I don't think you overreact and make it's not a damning statement on the season over what happens in week one, good or bad, quite honestly. We saw this last year with certain teams getting out to rough starts. Timberland did kind of the opposite last year. I think they were 11 or 12-1 to start the season and then kind of faded out. CBC was nationally ranked. They were undefeated, had some really key wins out in Las Vegas over Bishop, Gorman, some other nationally ranked teams, and then had the injury bug hit their pitching staff and, fell on tougher times kind of as the season wound down. So, it's a long season, and, certainly you got to take what happens opening week with a grain of salt either direction.
I agree with that. Let's take a look at our small school preseason rankings. I almost spilled the beans on that. I'll let you take it from there.
Well, we skipped over Nixa. Nixa, which is a top 10 school in our big school. They took a loss to our number one preseason small school, Springfield Catholic. And I truthfully wrestled with this one. Logan Rogersville and Springfield Catholic, that's 1A, 1B. But Springfield Catholic took down Nixa in extra innings in a huge game down in the Springfield area to start the season. So huge win for Springfield Catholic. Again, there's no shame in that for Nixa. They're playing a good team. And just because they're on the small school list, hey, some of these small schools can compete with anyone in the state when they have the right guy on the mound. And typically the difference between the small school and the big school is just depth. But Springfield Catholic, if they're lined up right, they can compete with anyone in the state. They got a big right-hander named Ben Smith going to Mizzou that, if you're a big school, you don't want to face him either. So good start for Springfield Catholic. Also going to be fun to keep an eye on Logan Rogersville. Those guys are going to be running neck and neck most of the season. Now, as fate has it, those two are in the same district this year. So one of our top two teams isn't going to get out of districts, which is incredible to think about. But that's going to be a heavyweight district championship game if seeds hold and, if chalk prevails.
Right. I like how you put that. And then right below that, I think those three teams, Kennett, Southern Boone, we had a great conversation with Coach Ash. He's got guys come back. He lost some guys, but I think they're going to be right there. And Father Tolton Catholic, that's a good ball club.
Yeah, these are familiar names. These guys were filling up the rankings last year as well. And we're in the Final Four. Southern Boone and Father Tolton were state champions last year as well. Kennett has been back-to-back years, really strong roster. They just have an assembly line of talent down there in the boot heel. So going to be fun to watch those three teams. But a lot of tradition there over the past couple of years and appear to be strong again. And all three are off to good starts right off the bat early in the season. And then to kind of round out our rankings in the small school, we have St. Pius X out of Kansas City. Borgia, which is a definite strong team just outside the St. Louis area. Jack Noby, one of the top guys over there, is a bat and pitcher. Russellville out of the central part of the state. And we talked about the St. Louis Patriots we have them in our number 9 in the small school. And then Blair Oaks, who's of course led by Will Lippert. And again, it's kind of one of those deals where you catch Blair Oaks on the wrong day, they can compete with anyone in anyone in our state if Will Lippert's on the mound. And then smaller school, you catch them on a day when maybe their number 3 or 4 pitchers pitching. It might be a completely different result than if their number 1 or 2 was on the mound.
And we'll look at this. I didn't have time to dive into this in the show prep, but when you're talking about the small schools too here, folks, you're ranging from class 4 all the way down to class 1. And so there's, I think Springfield Catholic is still class 3, if I'm not mistaken.
They moved up this year to 4.
Okay. All right. So that's right. Because you just said Logan Rogersville. That's all class 4. I love how you got Orrin snuck in there on your on deck. If anybody doesn't know, Orrin is class 2, I believe. And, man, they win a lot. They have a good program. Class 2, they won the state championship last year. And I've looked back through. They've had a lot of success. So, it's not always – you got MICDS down there. So these are not necessarily some of the big names that people think about. You might know MICDS because St. Louis, right? John Burroughs. I think John Burroughs has a really good –
John Burroughs is set for a strong season this year, Brian. And, that's one team I'm anxious to get out to see in the spring. But you will see in the small school a lot of our teams that are outside our big cities in the state. So, you will see a handful of St. Louis or Kansas City teams, but a lot of these small school teams are from outside the metropolitan areas. But can really play ball. So this is a fun group of teams to follow, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these guys as the spring goes on.
Absolutely. I want to do this real quick, Kevin, because I think it's interesting because I always like to look at the coaches poll. You've done this one. So we have the coaches poll over here, and we'll start with Class 5 real quick. And they've got Platte County at top, Festus, Willard, Fort Zumwalt East. That's how they rounded that out. It's interesting that they got Festus in the number 2 spot over Willard. And I think Willard is maybe
I was going to say, it looks like they went strictly off of the results of last year, which is one way to do that.
And remember, this is preseason as well.
Exactly. And that's the kind of the safe way to do it is you get your champion, you make them number one, your runner up two, your third place team number three, your fourth place. So that's it looks like that's kind of what was done. But there's nothing wrong with that either. And Platt's a heck of a team. Festus is going to be really strong this year, as is Willard. So kind of looks like that's how the 5A was set up.
Yeah, and you've got the teams that we've talked about here as you move through. You got Webb City, Parkway Central, Elias Catholic, Lutheran South, Glendale, McDonald County, Camdenton, Branson. They got Chaminade in there. That's interesting to me. I haven't heard that much about them.
Chaminade's obviously one of the toughest conferences in the state with the MCC. You're dealing with CBC, DeSmet, Vianney, SLU on a daily basis or a game by game basis in your conference there. So they will certainly be battle tested. They're led kind of by Quinn Council. They did have significant injury. Chris Pellegrine is out for the year for them. Left-hander committed to Iowa Western, quality lefty. So it will be interesting to see how they compete in the MCC, but certainly deserving of some love in the 5A class rankings.
And these are teams that you had listed. I think Camdenton right there that's going to be an interesting one down in the southwestern part with Branson down in the southwestern part of the state. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yes, and if I touch on Glendale, one of the more talented teams, Sebastian Norman, big-time sophomore out of the southwest area. He's going to Oklahoma State. So Glendale's a loaded group. A lot of strong teams in the 5A level.
Trying to remember the young man going to SEMO, his name.
Brooks Kettering.
Brooks Kettering going to SEMO. Yeah, they've got talent on that team. So Glendale's going to be a team to watch. And so I'm looking forward. So with Class 5. And when you talk about the small schools, Class 4, Southern Boone, Logan, Kennett, Marshall, John Burroughs, those are Blair Oaks, Pius X, Kansas City. We didn't, all those teams right there. Yeah, Russellville in the Class 2. Orrin is Class 1. So there you go. So that's Class 1. That's real small. That's interesting. They've been always at Russellville's Class 2, which you had in the top 10. So that's cool that's interesting having a Class 2 team in that rankings there. That's interesting.
It's admittedly subjective because,
sure,
how do you balance out a 4A team with 800 people versus the 1A team with, 160 people? You kind of just try to reward the teams that are putting together quality seasons.
Absolutely. I love and that's what I don't think people really understand sometimes about these rankings, right?
It is 100% subjective, and it also, like we talk about, especially with the small schools, though, it kind of depends on the day that you catch them. With the pitching match specifically,
right.
Yeah.
Now the Class 6 with the coaches, Liberty North, but they put Francis Howell above Blue Springs South, which I think is a fair assessment, and then CBC got in up over Lindbergh, of course, and I think that's fair. So you have the 3 finalists from last year's Final Four plus CBC, and they're just in a little different ranking, which I think is fair. Liberty, Rockbridge, Raymore Peculiar, they got Fort Zumwalt West. We'll see. Again, like I said, they're off to a hot start. I still think they have some question marks as they go through, but they seem to be as always, off to a hot start. And then, as you were talking, Republic, there's a team that I think people are going to have to watch for.
100%. Republic's definitely in the mix in the 6A, and a lot of strong teams in that Springfield area. So they're going to have plenty of competition, but it'll be fun to track and see who comes out of that side of the state.
Also like Kickapoo. Geez, they kind of, we don't talk about, I mean, Kickapoo's always right there. And, they've had a good program for a long time.
No question about it. And I just was talking about the southwest part of the state is loaded this year. And you look at number 1 and 2 in the small school rankings for PBR small school rankings are also out of the southwest part of the state. So, and those guys can absolutely compete with the 5 and the 6A schools in our state.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Lauren. Yep. Last piece. I'm just gonna flash a little bit about the St. Louis and Kansas City suburban conferences. And we're gonna finish off with that. If people don't, we didn't get you those, did we? I didn't do that because we got caught up in the son of a gun. No, we got caught up in the mouse mess, and I was going to get them. We'll just probably finish it here, and we'll talk a little bit about those next week. Okay? You didn't do it? Yeah, but it was up there. It was supposed to flash. You had it on in the it was up there. Remember the coaches poll? You didn't put it up when we were talking about it? It's okay. Well, I thought you were going to cue me over for that too. No, that's all the same. That was all the same segment. That I did. I said, now we're going to the Missouri High School coaches poll. That's when you move that over. All right. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. We talked about it. No, we talked about it. I'll take care of it in editing. No worries. Okay. So we had that little equipment fiasco, and we didn't get that last segment quite where we wanted it. So we're just going to probably finish it out, Kevin, here without that. Okay. Which, cool. Not a big deal. We'll talk about the suburban. We'll talk about those conferences next week.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to come back to this and we'll finish it out. All right. So we've got our rankings here, folks. We looked at the opening bell. There's a lot of great baseball being played. We have our schedule out, Kevin. We'll throw this out at the folks. We have our GAC game of the week. First one is April 4th, Francis Howell at Timberland. Looking forward to that one. We have our I should say YBMcast Missouri Showcase. We have 2 games. That's coming up next week. We're starting next week. We're going to be at Fort Zumwalt West in the Midwest Classic. We're going to do a pool game there because I thought it was really interesting. You got Blue Springs South coming over in that tournament. We're going to be at Fort Zumwalt West at 2 o'clock Thursday afternoon, March 30th. We're going to be live streaming Jaguars versus Jaguars.
Whoa. That'll be a showdown right there. That's going to be a great game.
Oh, yeah, I could. So we got that one coming up. That's our first game. That's our Missouri Showcase. Then we got the next week going into the GAC game of the week. We also got our Friday Night Lights. We're starting off our Friday Night Lights at St. Charles West against the Pattonville Pirates. So that'll all be a lot of fun. Though we'll have those dates on a calendar but we've been putting that out on social media. Then we're going to be out at Troy on that Friday night on the 21st. Against the North Point Grizzlies. We're going to see the turf. We're going to see the new team, the new GAC squad. I'm looking forward to that one. I'm looking forward to that because there's a lot of firsts there. First GAC team to have turf and the brand new school.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting one to see, just to be out at North Point. Obviously going to be a growing program throughout the next couple of years, so that'll be fun to get a first look at them.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we're finishing off our Friday Night Lights out at Baldwin Athletic Association with the old rivalry game between Webster Groves and Kirkwood. Kevin, we're going to have to, get you guys a little, maybe a side wager going with you and Wiggins.
Well,
oh man, but that's the tough thing. He's the head coach there. You can't do that, right? That's wrong. I'm sorry.
right,
I said that.
Yeah, don't get him in any trouble.
I'm getting him in trouble. No, I'm sorry, Dave. No side wagers. I should shut up, right? Oh, and we just finalized this when we're going to be doing this. Our final live stream of the season. We're going to have a couple of juggernauts, Jackson at CBC. That'll be May 9th, Tuesday afternoon. I'm looking forward to that one.
Wow, that'll be a fun one. Couple great teams there from different parts of the state, which it's always fun. I think when you get teams from different parts of the state in battle, just like the Jaguar on Jaguar game here next week. But you kind of get to learn about different parts of the city or the state and kind of see where, because before it's kind of all subjective. Well, hey, I think this team from Kansas City is better than that team from St. Louis. But when they get together on the field, you get to let the kids decide.
Absolutely. And I appreciate Coach Horn. I met him the other day real quickly, briefly introduced to him. And so appreciate him allowing us to bring the cameras out and live stream that game. So that one's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that one. So a lot of stuff going on, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Kevin, I really appreciate you taking the time out today to do the show with us, bud.
Always good talking baseball.
Absolutely. Everybody, thanks for tuning. Remember, subscribe. We got the bucket. We got the giveaway here with Prime Sports Midwest. And so when you subscribe, you get an opportunity to win all of this gear. And it always helps when you're at practice, right? So, folks, have a great day in the Lord. Pitchers, I know it's cold, but you got to throw some strikes, baby. Keep throwing them strikes. And hitters, Kevin?
Hit them where they ain't.
Good advice, guys. We'll see y'all next time.